Hey everybody, Shane here, Shoebox Legends. Thanks for joining me for a quick buyback rummage today. I've been, to be honest with you, in a little bit of a hobby funk. I don't know what it is, maybe the nice weather being here, just having other things to do outside that don't involve cards or the hobby, but I just haven't really been feeling it over the last month or two. You may have noticed with my kind of lack of content or drop off in content. I still love the hobby, I'm not quitting the hobby, I'll always participate in this. But I've been buying far fewer cards than I ever have in the past, really over the past 18 years. And I've really been focusing on selling, minimizing my collection. But the one thing that I've really still been enjoying and I'm constantly on the hunt for are buyback cards. So we're gonna rummage today through this Morgan Brothers cheese box that contains nothing but buybacks. Baseball, hockey, maybe an occasional football one, I'm not sure, but let's just get started. We'll see how it goes. And we start with this great one, Tony Canigliaro, Tony C, on the 1970 Topps. This is a 2019 Topps Heritage box topper buyback. And this is a great card for a Red Sox fan. For those who don't know, as he's really more of like a local legend, maybe than a national legend, but he broke into the Red Sox lineup, I think in the mid 60s, and looked like he was going to be a big deal. Like as a young kid, he was doing incredibly well. Looked like he was going to be a mainstay in the lineup for years to come and have a star player type career, maybe even Hall of Fame. But as fate would have it, he got hit in the face with a nasty pitch early on in his career. And he really never recovered from that or bounced back to the state that he was at prior. And then eventually he actually passed away at a very young age as well, tragically. So sort of a sad figure, but also a fan favorite here in New England. And happy to see that buyback spill out of the box. Here's a really fun one up next, and this top loader is beat, so I'm going to take this one out so we can enjoy it a little bit better. From my favorite set of all time, 1990 Topps, we have our second consecutive Red Sox buyback here, and it's a great one with Hall of Famer Wade Boggs on the All-Star subset. I've mentioned many times how I love how the 1990 All-Stars kind of harken back to the original 58s, and that the American League is done with a red background and the National League is done in a blue background. So pretty awesome Wade Boggs card there. That's going to go directly into my 1990 Topps buyback binder that I've been working feverishly on for about 10 years now, if you can believe that. We got a fun team card up next here. The Kansas City Athletics. This is, I think, from 1967 Topps. But a great card here. I love these team photos. I love the plain colored background that existed on these. Here's a look at the back. Your 66 KC Athletics depicted. This, of course, being a 1967 card. So a pretty fun one there. Not all of these, of course, are Hall of Famers in this box, but they are all significant buybacks in some way, shape, or form. And we've got a quick hockey one up next. These I've really been going after the last 3 or 4 years. From the 2020 Pro Set Memories release by Leaf. This is an original inaugural 1990 Pro Set card, the first set they ever did of Mike Gartner, Hall of Famer and 700 goal scorer. He is a member of that very small and very elite club of 700 goal players. And these buybacks are all numbered to 5. So I have copy 4 of 5 here on the Mike Gartner. I've really gone down the rabbit hole trying to get as many Hall of Famers and stars as I can in those Pro Set buybacks, especially the 90-90 ones. This was a beautiful set that I think was way ahead of its time. Full color backs, team color matching design, sharp photography. And even though Pro Set would go bankrupt within like 3 years, that first ever Pro Set hockey set has always been near and dear to me. And I just think it's wild and really cool that you can get those in buyback format. Going back to baseball here in the 1970s, how about this Don Zimmer with a cheek full of chaw there from his time, which I do not recall. This was, of course, before I was born, managing the San Diego Padres. That's pretty wild. I really think of him later in his career with the Yankees or other teams, or even as a player, all the way back in the 50s. But this is a cool looking Zimmer. I love that it has my initials on the cap there, on that San Diego cap. And this one will be vying for spot number 12 in the Frankenset binder. So that could be a challenge. Those early numbers sometimes have some pretty big cards in the binder, but we'll see if Don is able to fight his way in. Let's go to the left portion of the box next, and here's a really fun one. This is actually a duplicate. I had picked up 2 copies of this, but this is Ryan Durn of the LA Angels on the 1963 Topps release. What's cool about him, as many know, he was the inspiration for the character, the Wild Thing character in the Major League movies growing up. So I love his shades here, even on the inset black and white photo. And he was known as like a fireballer who had an absolute rocket arm, but did occasionally struggle with control. But I just love that tie-in to the movie franchise. And so I've tried to pick up a few different buybacks of his kind of over the years. So there's a beautiful 63. Next up, here's one from Com C. I can tell by the receipt, and we'll do the Com C crumple. A 91 All-Star Bobby Thigpen. Now, I'm not entirely sure why I picked this one out, to be honest with you. I think it was just a chance to get the All-Star design from 91 represented in my buyback collection. I don't really collect Bobby Thigpen per se, but I do love the layout and the design here. Be tough for this one to fight its way into the set at 396, only because the All-Star cards from many of the top set are kind of in that numerical range. So I think this is an unlikely buyback Frankenset candidate, but cool cheap buyback nonetheless, and probably one that cost me, all of 50 cents. We're going back to the 60s next here with a brutally off-center Ken Johnson. And this one was picked up just because of the team depicted. Of course, the Houston Colt 45s, who would later become the Astros, love forgotten teams or franchises that have moved on. And so I try to get as many Colts buybacks as I can. I do the same thing with the Seattle Pilots. And I have a little section in a side project album that I'm working on where I have a lot of these Colts and Pilots buybacks kind of laid out all on one page. So this will be a nice addition to that. So not really seeing a ton of Hall of Famers come out of the box here. There's been some lower level stars in today's rummage. Here's one that's unique and cool just because of the original set that it's from. This Roy McMillan is, of course, a 1957 Topps card initially, but was part of the 2014 75th anniversary buyback program. And this is cool because as someone who collects the pack-issued standard size buybacks like I do, this is the oldest one that you could possibly get. Of course, in 56 and older, those cards were oversized or undersized. They don't fit in standard packs to be issued in this day and age. So 57 Topps, these are the oldest buybacks that are represented in my Frankenset project. And I'm really happy to see another. You do not run across these often. And I love the glasses on this one. Just really awesome shot there of the shortstop for the Cincinnati Redlegs. Love that it's spelled out as well. And this one will be vying for spot 69 in the Frankenset binder. Let's see if we can get a Hall of Famer here. The streak of non-Hall of Famers continues, although a little bit ironic at this point because Baines is one of the greatest hitters in the history of the game. And of course, myself being a lover of 1990 Topps, I am really pumped to see this one come out of the cheese box. This will either go into my 90 Topps Frankenset or set build, or we'll go into the buyback Frankenset. But love me some Barry Bonds. I've done a complete 180 in my attitude towards this guy. I've mentioned it before, but like 20 some odd years ago, probably, I read Game of Shadows from cover to cover and was just so disappointed in Bonds and everything that was going on in the game of baseball that I kind of judged him unfairly, didn't really collect him, wasn't a fan. But with the passing of time and as I've gotten older and hopefully a little more wiser and a little more forgiving and a little more understanding of the complexities of our complicated world that we live in, I've really done a 180 and I really like Barry Bonds a lot. I understand some of his numbers are questionable and were fueled by performance-enhancing drugs, but that aside, he is still one of the greatest hitters of our generation or of any generation, and he is putting up numbers the likes of which we really haven't seen since, other than Aaron Judge, who has come close to replicating those over the last couple of seasons. So pumped to see that Barry Bonds. Let's keep fishing here. And we finally get a Hall of Famer, and ironically, it's one of the players that is always referenced as kind of a Hall of Fame joke or should not be inducted, which I don't think is really too fair to him, but Harold Baines, depicted here on the 89 Topps release with the Chicago White Sox. And this was just a cheap grab of a Hall of Famer. If I can find a buyback card of a Hall of Famer for like $1 or less, I just really find it hard to resist scooping those up. So with apologies to Tony C, we'll put Harold Baines up in the background. We got the nice 89-90 combo there with Baines and Boggs. Do a couple more here. One of my favorite players ever, Rick Wise, depicted here on the 72 Topps release. And I love this guy because I think it was the year prior in 1971. He had one of the greatest days in the history of baseball for any pitcher when he no-hit the powerhouse Cincinnati Reds and also hit 2 home runs of his own during the no-hitter. I've mentioned it before. I think I've done a couple VRs on it, but to me, that day that Rick Wise had in the summer of 71 was arguably the greatest pitching performance, single game pitching performance that anybody's had in the history of baseball when you put together the no-hitter and 2 home runs at the plate, and did it against the Reds too. Not a slouch team here, but a team with multiple Hall of Famers and baseball's all-time hit king on the roster. And then we're going to finish this one out with something a little bit different. So in a recent rummage, a viewer had commented about these boxes that appeared over to the right that look like they're little, I guess they're just little clear plastic holders that have maybe 20 or 30 cards in them. And somebody was asking, what are these? So we're going to bust open one of the two today. Let me get my knife out here. And what this is a lot of 1979 Topps buybacks that I landed a long while back. I've never looked through these. I'm actually just cutting the tape off now for the first time ever. It's probably going to be mostly commons and scrubs. I don't think there are stars in here, but it's been so long that maybe there are. Let's find out together. We start with Bill Castro, Paul Hartzell, Bill Madlock, there's a star for the Giants. And there is an absolute winner. This will definitely be the card of this case. Carly Yastrzemski. This Red Sox fan is just tickled pink to see this one. Card number 320. That will be a strong candidate for Frankenset inclusion. I'm going to actually set that one off to the side here. Let's go through the rest of these. John Curtis with great Dahmer glasses and mustache combo there. Shout out to my buddy BK over at MacWack Stacks. Jim Mason, very OC top to bottom. Keith Hernandez, there's another great star card. And an early career Hernandez too. I think, is that like a 3rd-year card maybe? Not sure. David Clyde, there's a fun one. He was a very highly touted prospect back in the 70s. Tom Bergmeyer. Dave Skaggs. Nino Espinoza. Look at the afro going on there. Love that. Steve Dillard. Tom House. Another Dahmer mustache combo. Don Kirkwood. Tom Grieve. Warren Cromartie. Love that photo with the batting helmet there. Ted Cox. Leroy Stanton. Mike Flanagan. Tim Foley. Reggie Cleveland. Dave LaRoche. Eric Soderholm, another Dahmer mustache combo that was really popular in the late 70s. Sam Mejias. We finish out with Scott McGregor, pitcher for the Orioles. So nice batch of 79s there. I'd say Bill Madlock, along with these two, were the highlights. Keith Hernandez and the great Carly Yastrzemski. And with that little lot out of the way, that's going to conclude today's rummage. Went a little bit longer than usual, but I do appreciate you sticking it out. Hope you enjoyed seeing some of these. I'll be back soon as I shake off my hobby funk here with some more videos. But in the meantime, enjoy the hobby, everybody, and take care.